because obviously there must have been a kind of more sort of religious bunch of people who are living the life of the Mormon church, who were, the parents were
Hmm.
proud, and then there were the rebels, the kind
Yes.
of naughty kids. You were obviously, hanging out that side,
I was of the
but
naughties.
exactly. But it's nothing is ever black and white. So what was there
No,
sex
it
education
is.
there? And was
It
there,
is
was,
black and white. It is
oh,
black and white in the Mormon church.
okay.
And they do that on purpose. There's no gray there. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay.
And
Damn.
that's what, and I don't want to say the C word, right? I definitely want to say, hey, this is a high, my family's still in church. So I say it has cult-like characteristics. And that's what high demand religions do, right? This all or nothing thinking.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up.
Hi guys, welcome back to Neff Inspiration, my show on YouTube and as a podcast with me, your host, Stefan Neff. Today I've got Crystal Hamilton with me, and I was really looking forward to this interview for quite some time because ultimately Crystal has made it her mission to talk about bringing families back together after religious trauma. And this is, I think, quite a really important topic to talk about because there's still so much taboo about that. When things go not so well in a childhood, that we see the consequences later on with maladaption, with not so great coping mechanisms. And if we were to look
Mhm.
at adverse childhood experiences, the ACEs, a beautiful study that really showed us with the more adverse childhood experiences there are, the more later on you're tempted to escape your reality with either not so great coping mechanisms or in fact actually with things such as drugs, alcohol, food, gambling, pornography. There's a whole cornucopia there of things how you can try to run away from your reality. And many of us have become escape artists, masters of escape artists. So I certainly was there. Crystal, I know you were there. And therefore,
Yes.
I find it so amazing and that I'm so grateful that you share authentically what actually has happened to you and the lessons that we
Mhm.
all can learn from it. So, Crystal, welcome to my show.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. Wow.
Mhm.
Crystal, I mean, how do you start an interview like that? Tell me about your religious trauma. How was it for you? These are things that normally no one ever talks about.
Mhm.
There's so much shame and guilt associated with an upbringing under such circumstances. Um,
Mhm.
what made you decide to change that? What made you decide to speak out and share your experience?
Well, I didn't think I went through trauma. I didn't I didn't know that
Yeah.
I wasn't able to verbalize it. I didn't even know what religious trauma was. I didn't know that even term even existed until a couple of years ago, right? I didn't even know leaving my uh, childhood religion was traumatic until I was after grad school, graduated from grad school in 2013. So maybe 2013, 2014, I was like, oh, I went through trauma. I had no idea. It was amazing.
And when we say trauma, trauma is a weird, weird thing because trauma for one person is so different from others. And for a long
Right.
time, I thought, no, I didn't have trauma. I didn't see my friends being blown up on the battlefield, or,
Mm.
it is what happened to me. Yeah, well, I'm a man. Did I not? For a
Right.
long time, I did not realize what an impact it had and many things that happened to me over the years, what impact they had on my behavior and reinforcing maybe wrong core beliefs or coping mechanisms that I'm now not so proud of. What
Right.
was your upbringing? You were in a quite strict household, were you not?
I grew up in a really strict household. I was born in New Orleans. Both of my parents are from Idaho. So that's like the redheaded stepchild of Utah. I don't even know if you can actually say that term anymore, but
Thank you. I think it paints the picture really well, actually. In a to use positive words, very conservative, Christian, a certain kind of expected lifestyle.
yes, it's the mainstream there. So my dad grew up in a small town, Yukon, Idaho, on a farm. My mom, small town, Idaho Falls. So they left there in the military, and then my dad was started working for BP.
Mhm.
And so they ended up in Louisiana for 20 years, and they absolutely hated it because it's not how they were raised. So Idaho is all white, mostly white people, right? Some Hispanics that come up for harvest time, but so that was a shock for them to be in Louisiana and to be around people of color. So I'm the youngest out of six, and my 5 girls, 1 boy, and my brother and I are 13 months apart. So I think he definitely stole my thunder of the youngest child. And I really saw how Mormon boys are treated completely different than girls. So that was really prevalent in my family, in my life. So every year we would take family trips in this, that 1970s station wagon, no seat belts, the window down and feet like hanging out. There's 6 kids in the car. And so one year we drove up to Idaho, and my oldest sister was gay. And then my second sister, Sherry, they were really close there. And so when my parents were like, we can't deal with my oldest sister, we're going to leave her in Idaho.
Oh,
My
wow.
second, yeah. And my second sister was like, oh, well, I want to stay with her. And so we went back to New Orleans without 2 sisters. And so in my head, I don't really know what's happening. I mean, this is before I even started school, right? But the covert rules that I learned was, if you're not Mormon, you're out of the family.
Is
So that was
there homosexuality even acknowledged, leave alone accepted?
in the Mormons?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
So, and that's another thing. Because I think my whole family's bisexual, right? We're just whatever, free, kind of free loving, right?
Well,
And
that on the one hand, you would have the free loving kind of hippies alternative lifestyle of the 60s, 70s. Yet there on the other side, you have got that strict church, temple, Mormon. Well, how does that work?
my parents did not, they were not in the typical 1960s 70s lifestyle. They were
Good.
married in the temple.
Right.
So you typically do not date until you're 16 in the Mormon church. And my parents were so afraid that I was leaning towards being gay that they allowed me to date at 14.
The devil you know. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I dated this guy, 14. I started having sex with him in my sophomore year of high school. So much shame. Like, I went in there and told the bishop, the Mormons don't believe in hell. It's called outer darkness. And I haven't been in the church for 20 years, so I don't know, but they're changing things a little bit. So they may call it different stuff now. but you're definitely not going to be in the highest level of heaven that they teach. So I went into the bishop, confessed my sins. And then I had so much shame that I couldn't deal with it. And I started partying. And I was, which I did not even realize was illegal until 2 years ago, when I realized, oh, I was with guys that were like 24 buying 16-year-old alcohol, and I had sex with them. It didn't even occur to me that was, and I'm a therapist, right? I'm current day therapist. And because in my head, I was like, that's what I wanted. I was acting out, I was partying. But no, I mean, that's illegal. It's predatory behavior. Well, when I'm there, I meet this guy. He's 19 and we start dating. And then that's when my parents are like, oh, you're having sex with him? And I can go into more, I don't know how far in details I want to go into this.
This is your platform here. I'm honored that you're so authentic and that you feel that you can actually share this much, because you're not the first one. You won't be the last one. Every teenager doesn't know their boundaries. Everyone wants to spread their wings and wants to become, there is so much happening in every single teenager, leave alone those that come from a more conservative background where it's maybe more restricted and more frowned upon that you actually have sexual relations.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I'll tell one funny story. It's kind of like, in the program, you say a little funny story when you're drinking. And then so I was 16 and we went out to a party. No, I was 17. We went out to a party, and back in the day, it's pagers. My parents are paging him to like, where's she at? She needs to come home. And so, after doing our thing, we're driving home, and he has like this, it's a Z28 Camaro. So it's loud. It's like a V8, super loud. So there's no sneaking up. It's like,
you hear him from 5 miles away.
Yeah. So it's late. I mean, I'm guessing it's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I don't remember. And he's like driving slowly, like really loud. And then we see the cop cars there. And the cop cars are there. And we're like, what do we do? And my dad comes out. He's like, oh, we're gonna come on in. And we're like, okay. We come inside. The cops are there. And they're like, we're going to do a rape kit on you, and we're going to get him arrested. He was 19 and I was 16. That's right. I was 16. He was 19. He was a virgin. I mean, poor guy, just did it. He was just a dumb kid. Right. And so I just took him down my shame spiral. But the cops were there. They're like, they were really nice to him. They let him go. Nothing happened. And then I guess after some time we started dating again. And then my parents were like, are you having sex? Are you having sex? Are you having sex? And one time I was just like, yes, we're having sex. So my mom goes into the kitchen, grabs the calendar, puts it in our face and said, pick a date. When are you getting married? I'm a senior in high school, and I got married as a senior in high school to this guy. I graduated from high school married. I graduated from Mormon seminary married. We were miserable. We fought every day.
And that is your newfound husband and you, not your parents and you.
No.
Was there actually a shotgun involved in that? Because it sounds terribly like that. Did he have a choice? Not really.
oh, okay. It's on the calendar. Let's do it.
Oh,
This
oh. And it honors
poor
him.
guy.
I have to say, it honors him to actually go out there and say, yes, okay, I'm standing by your side, because that
Yeah.
is what society expects us to do. And I think
Ugh.
there is, yeah, yeah, you can frown and roll your eyes. But at the
Yeah.
same token, there is a virtue in that. There is actually, he did not leave you alone. Let's put it like that. If you were to
Mhm.
think of it as a sign of trying to do the right thing, both in
Mm.
your relationship as well as whatever
Yeah.
your societal roles were there. So actually good on
Yeah.
him, but needless to say, you're right. What a great start of a relationship. Lots of faith and trust and lots of, yeah, positive things that put a smile on our faces.
Oh,
Yeah.
what a nightmare. Yeah. So we were fighting all the time, and he wanted to move he wanted to move to East Texas and live by his mother.
Mm,
And he didn't want me to go to school. He thought school was dumb. He's
mm,
like, it's a waste of money. You don't need to go to school. So that was a big thing. And then we were fighting all the time. And my parents were encouraging me to leave him because he did not convert to being a Mormon. And that's what he was supposed to do.
right.
He was supposed to we're supposed to get married. He's supposed to convert. And then we're supposed to get married in the temple. And he refused to convert. Thankful. Now I'm like, oh my God, thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, and so my dad and I were driving to Galveston one time,
Yeah.
and he's like, you know what? I'm not going to tell you what to do, but you know, you seem unhappy. You know, if you want to get a divorce, your mom and I support you. I'm like, all right, let's do it. Let's get a divorce. And I got divorced.
How old were
So I
you
was
then?
married
How long was
18.
you?
Yes.
Oh goodness. So divorce is okay amongst Mormons.
Well, he's not a Mormon, so
Oh, of
of course
course.
he's not righteous.
Ooh. If at all, this was a desired outcome under these circumstances. He was a pariah from the word go.
Yes.
What is the word for pariah in the Mormon church? Persona non grata, so to speak.
I'd have to think about this.
Okay, I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but this is just such a strange setup that I have not yet experienced, and
Yeah.
so it is so much pressure on a young person
Hmm.
that has to make huge conscious decisions and hasn't
Yeah.
even developed emotionally appropriately. So,
Yes.
okay, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop, and you're going out there and saying, "Come on, life, bring it on." What do you mean? Only one bottle of vodka per night? Come on, we can do better than that.
Yes.
So, what do I get the feeling right?
Yes. Yes. So we get divorced, and then I go to Idaho, and I went to go live with my grandmother. That's what happened. And I went to go with my grandmother. I was there for like a week in Idaho. And I had like gone off with my cousin that was like, I was 18. She was like 17 and she's supposed to be in school, and we got in trouble. What, just kid stuff. And so my mom's like, oh, you're going back to Houston, my grandma. And she was mean. She's 90 years old. And she told me she was going to beat me and make me bleed in the corner. And I'm like, what? And I call my mom. I'm like, Mom, she threatened to hit me. She's like, imagine how things were when she was younger. Yep,
Mhm.
that's how I grew up. Like,
And talk about intergenerational trauma there. Talk about what was handed down from
yeah,
your grandmother, great grandmother, down through the generations. Nowadays, we know that
yes.
that trauma is handed down, and responses, well, responses are being modeled, attachment
Yes.
styles are being modeled, and no surprise,
Yes.
therefore, that maybe you had you started off on a back foot there. So if you can't lash out and can't let rip at one stage, then I don't want to know. Okay. So you got out of
Yeah.
your grandma's
So I was there for
grip.
a week. Yeah, I was there for a week, and then my dad. Oh, my dad was really cool. My dad drove with me from Houston. It was just the two of us from Houston. He set me up in Idaho, and then he like went to go visit other relatives. I got kicked out of grandma's house, and so he came back and was like, and helped me find another place to live, which was on Ricks College. And it's not called Ricks College anymore in Rexburg, Idaho. It's called BYU, Idaho. It's a 4-year college now. And so he went there, and then it was off campus housing. And so in his head, he's like, okay, you're with the Mormons, you're going to get on track, it's going to happen. It didn't happen. I was smoking and drinking, and I was driving all over the West Coast and having fun, like with my friends to San Francisco. It was just a lot of fun. And then I was dating this loser, just a complete loser. And we had driven to Washington. His dad had died. Yeah. And so we went to his funeral, and I was having pains. I didn't know what was going on with me. So for days and days and days. And then we're driving back from Tacoma back to Idaho. And I was like, you're going to have to take me to the hospital. And, here's the big H blue sign, hospital. So we just pull off in a small town. And they're like, oh, well, we think she has a venereal disease. Because it's pain. So they do a woman's exam, nothing. And then they transport me to another hospital where they're like, hey, this may be appendicitis, but because of her age, it's probably a venereal disease. So they tell my parents this, which I don't know why they're talking to my parents about this. And so it was my appendix ruptured. It didn't rupture. It was inflamed. So they did an exploratory surgery, and they wanted to give me an ostomy. And he's like, you're so young, I didn't want to do an ostomy, so we'll come back in 2 days, make sure you're okay. And then because we don't want to do that. So 2 days later, I go in for a second surgery. Lungs collapse. I'm in ICU. They tell my parents I am gonna die. I'm gonna go back to Houston in a body bag. And so my parents were trying to save money. So they took a bus from Houston, 3 days. They took a bus to Washington State. And the surgeon I had was a Mormon. And so they're talking to my parents about, hey, why is this girl so sick? What's happening? Because I didn't get the care that I was supposed to have for an appendicitis immediately. But so the Mormon missionaries come in, they give me, and I'm with this loser guy I'm dating. He's sitting on my bed with me, and the missionaries come in and like, hey, can we give you a blessing? I'm like, okay, whatever. So they give me a blessing. The surgeon comes in, and he talks to me about going back to the Mormon church. I don't remember him talking to me anything about my surgery. He didn't mention, hey, there's a possibility this could affect your fertility. Absolutely. Which I didn't know until I had infertility, until I was trying to get pregnant at 36. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this could have been something that he could have told me was happening. I had no idea. And so he definitely crossed the boundary. If this happened today, I would complain about it, but I'm 18. I have no idea. Wow. So my parents drive me back to Houston, and I live with them. And then there's the shame and the guilt. You need to go talk to the bishop. You need to get straight. And I'm just like, okay. So I'm like living at home, going to church sometimes and then doing coke and drinking at the same time, just so bizarre.
You lived this kind of double life there, but also a very innocent. When I say innocent, that's probably the wrong word. Naive is probably the better word, isn't it? You had no real clue what was going on. Out of interest, were all your friends, were they all Mormon children? Because obviously there must have been a kind of more sort of religious bunch of people who are living the life of the Mormon church, who were, the parents were proud, and then there were the rebels, the kind
Yes.
of naughty kids. You were obviously, hanging out that side,
I was of the
but
naughties.
exactly. But it's nothing is ever black and white. So what was there
No,
sex
it
education
is.
there? And was
It
there,
is
was,
black and white. It is
uh,
black and white in the Mormon church.
okay.
And they do that on purpose. There's no gray there.
Hmm. Okay.
And
Damn.
that's what, and I don't want to say the C word, right? I definitely want to say, hey, this is my family is still in church. So I say it has cult-like characteristics. And that's what high demand religions do, right? This all or nothing thinking.
That's good. The C word could mean so much. So okay. So for some people that's cancer. For some people it's a cult. See, my, for us here in New Zealand, we are pretty much a swearing kind of people. So therefore the C word there is a different story. So we're talking cult, and I think we should actually call it for what it is.
Mm,
Um, I'm not saying that the Mormon Church is necessarily a cult.
mm,
Although I think there are some features or some traits of the people within the church, um,
mm,
certainly more the
mm.
extreme version, which
Yeah,
probably could be well described as a cult, isn't it?
yeah.
Is uh, the sheer fact that there was such little tolerance there towards any kind of other style of living
Hmm.
um, is probably one of the key features. But also, if you were to look back, cults often there are no boundaries, and people in power often misuse that power.
Yeah,
Did you experience similar situations within and I'm careful here,
yeah, yeah,
within your environment, because there might very well be church elders who are listening to that and say, bloody hell, we would have not done that in our temple. That doesn't happen. And I
right.
have to accept that because I'm not privy to what is happening,
Yeah,
but I assume that just as much as with Islam,
mm,
you have got extremists where just
correct.
extremist is far too kind, and then you have got a really liberal kind of Islam, and then I assume the same
Mm,
is maybe occurring in the Mormon church as well. Is that fair to say?
yes, absolutely. And it's how close you are to Utah, right? So I grew up in the South where if you're a convert in the South, it's a little bit more relaxed compared
Ah,
to like, especially people coming from Utah. A bishop coming from Utah is a lot different than a convert bishop.
interesting. Okay.
Yes. It's not, what did my
Hmm.
mother always say? Don't, the spirit of the law rather than the letter of the law. Um,
Okay.
yeah.
So the
We,
interpretation, how
mhm,
extreme you want to live, I assume close to God, close to the teachings of God.
mhm,
Is that how it is sold? That because it is selling, it is advertisement, it is basically um,
yeah,
brainwashing would be a negative word, but it's advertising. Ultimately, they want you to conform in a certain way. So
yeah,
therefore, there's the stick and there's the carrot. But I think it sounds a bit more sticky than carroty sweet. Is
yeah.
that right?
So I'm just thinking, today it's been so long since I learned about church history and been to seminary,
Hmm.
and so I was writing, kind of coming up with the blog. I'm like writing all these things, and basically it was the president of the church, a white man, and his two counselors, and then the 12 apostles, all white men. And so I researched it today and I was like, oh yeah, Ezra Taft Benson, that was during the 80s and 90s. And then I recognize these kind of names, and I can't even tell you who the prophet is today. But I was like, no wonder. And for like years upon years, I was like, I hate white men. I just I just couldn't handle, and I still say that. I was like, this white male privilege, I've had it. I've had it up to here. I don't know if you're following the US presidential
Oh, yes.
election too. So I've had it with this privilege, right?
Yeah.
Where it's literally men have dominion over women.
Yeah. But
So
that's
what
that has nothing to do with privilege. This is male toxicity,
mm,
masculine toxicity. Okay,
yes,
this is again,
yes.
this has the kind.
That's true. That's true. Okay,
Okay,
privilege and tox. Okay,
yeah.
I see
No,
that.
this is
Okay.
there is very much a virtue in being a man, and there are
Mm,
just as much as there's the femininity is so important, and we need to celebrate both.
yeah.
It is if you
Yeah.
just demasculate or emasculate men, yeah, typically women then say, "What are you, needy little puppy?" And we see then the
Yeah.
toxic masculinity as a pendulum
Mm.
swinging. So it's never
Oh,
easy
yeah.
with that, but we need to
Yeah.
celebrate both yin and yang, so to speak. But
I
here
I
we
love
are.
that.
But here you,
I love that. Yeah, because I really struggled with that. And I
I,
really struggled getting in touch with my masculinity, right? And
ah,
like
exactly.
understanding. Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. What was the pendulum like for you? So here you were the naughty girl going out there. Did you celebrate your femininity? Were you sort of a really naughty girl with a cleavage to the belly button, and I don't
Oh
know.
no.
No, was not your thing.
Well, no, no, I like, well, yeah, I guess.
Well, here you
I'm trying
are.
to think like
Yeah.
in my 20s.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I was young and perky and cute, and that's going clubbing and yeah.
So you
Yeah.
celebrated that part and explored that part. And
I think I
again,
didn't answer your last question though. And that um because I wanted to bring that up before I forget it
yeah.
about uh not that I was sexually abused in the church. What was the
Oh, I
question
see.
about that?
The question was
The
basically the misuse of
power,
authority, of power. That's right.
power, authority. Um, and so I didn't experience that. I know it's prevalent in the church. Um, and so um, my experience that I had was I was with my friends in the church pews talking to them, and yeah, it was like in the 90s with those wraparound skirts, right? And so my skirt had fallen open,
Mm.
and my friend's father stared at me the whole time when I was fixing it. And we're in church, and he's the Sunday school teacher. And
Okay.
I refused to go to Sunday school with him anymore.
Hmm.
And so I would go with my mom. I was like, I'm not going. He's weird. I don't like him. I'm
Go.
not doing it. And she's like, okay, then you can come to church, whatever, the second hour
Hmm.
of class with me. And so they didn't force me to go to that. I was like, he's weird. Something's wrong with him. And they allowed him to teach
Hmm.
teenagers.
Hmm.
And so now my father told me that they have a rule now that it's too deep, that they always have two people in there. And I was like, well, hopefully they're not both uh, questionable.
Yeah.
But they've changed the rules now.
Hmm.
Yeah. But I felt very uncomfortable.
Hmm. Okay. I'm pleased to hear that there is not a horror story coming out there, although
Hmm.
no doubt there will be so many stories which would make your toenails curl. There is so much abuse happening. No two
Yes.
ways around that. Far, 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 far
Mhm.
more than we like to know, like to believe, like to accept. And I think that
Mhm.
is so for everyone out there listening, it is, uh, please, people like you, Crystal, and like me, we are aware of it. And I think by
Mhm.
speaking openly about such taboo topics, maybe we can make it easier for someone else to speak up about their own plight, or maybe get the experience the power to actually speak out against their perpetrator, however
Yeah.
difficult that will be.
Yeah. I have a sister that was molested by a family member who was married in the temple, has children,
Mm,
and no police involvement. My parents did not involve the police, didn't, but they told the bishop. And so that's for years. That's what we were told. Well, we told the bishop.
mm, mm,
And I asked her, I was like, there's a big lawsuit coming out now specifically about this. And I asked her, well, are you thinking about joining the lawsuit? And she's not. And that's her story to tell. I'm not going to tell her story.
mm, mm,
And growing up, though, I saw the effects of abuse, and I saw that men are going to take care of these issues internally, that women, our voices do not matter, and that, yeah,
Okay. Okay. And then the escape started. I mean,
yeah.
you were still though deemed to be a Mormon girl,
Mhm.
but you were now at college. You were going out there, living your life to a certain degree at your terms. But your mom and dad would
Mhm.
have still continued to try to have an influence on you, would they not?
Yes. So maybe the last time I went to church, I was 19 or 20. I
Mm,
was kind of the rebel kids. We went to a singles ward. And I was like, I went to church, I was like, no, no, this isn't for me.
mm.
And so I had gotten into trouble with my brother, and we were drinking and using, and we ended up in jail together. And that's a whole other thing.
Okay.
and and so instead of um hey, maybe I have a drinking problem, I just moved to a different state because that's how I deal with things. And that's when I went to Idaho, and then I was like, wow, well, this isn't really working for me, let's go to Eugene. And I was like, this is what you do in college. So much fun, drinking and
Mm,
drugs. And then I'm like having sex, and I'm like, you have orgasms when you have sex? I had no
mhm.
idea. Like, this is supposed to be fun,
Ooh.
enjoyable. I was like, wow.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So then I'm like, I kind of start letting go of the shame. I was like, hey, those are what happened in high school. That was bad choices, but I'm
Mm,
not a bad person. So the shame went away. Turned
beautiful.
25. Yeah. Turned 25. And that's, your brain's formed. And that's when, like, I was like, the church is not real. It's
Okay.
not true. Yeah.
But here you are. You have not been shown good coping mechanisms. You have explored all the cool dopamine fixes that you can get your hands on. Um, and so, therefore, and I've already figured you out as an escape artist, also escaping your reality,
Yeah.
moving away to other
Yes. Yeah.
running away. Let's call it what it is. This
Yeah.
is so
Yeah.
far, there is not a positive coping mechanism in sight. These coping mechanisms that you have
Mhm.
got, when I say positive or negative, they are not positive, negative. They are very valid and very powerful to protect you
Mhm.
with your needs, with the lack of shelter, with the lack of nurturing, with the lack of someone
Mhm.
telling you how wonderful you are. But the alcohol allows you to escape. The alcohol
Yeah.
probably gave you the first
Yeah.
time the feeling that actually, oh
Yeah.
God, I'm all right. I feel good.
Yeah. Yeah. Didn't even know I had anxiety.
Mm.
Right. Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
again, the hangover comes. So in my book, My Steps to Sobriety, third edition, I'm calling it hangxiety, okay, because the hangover is there and the anxiety
Oh,
has not gone away. Now it's much, much greater. So,
yes.
oh God. So, I
Yes.
mean, you kept playing with that, with
Hmm.
those, those beautiful things that let you escape reality, whatever they were, alcohol
Yes.
and many other things. So,
Yeah.
I continued until my 40s,
Really?
really. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
What about you?
yeah. I got sober at 34. Yeah.
Nice. Nice, nice,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. I actually have 11 years on the 19th. So,
Ooh.
yeah. Yeah.
Congratulations, girl.
Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
But then again, out of interest, I mean, here you were trying to
Mhm.
escape as much as possible, which is
Oh, yeah.
normal under those circumstances. But what made the change? What made you
Mm.
explore other ways of maybe experiencing negative emotions rather than running away from them? What was the catalyst that made you change?
When my now husband, he was diagnosed with cirrhosis. And so he went into the hospital, started throwing up blood. And
That'll do it. Okay.
yeah, and he's in the hospital. I go home and I'm drinking the rest. So he has a few more days of sobriety than I do. But so he's in the hospital and I'm at home drinking the rest of my beer, right? And my neighbor's like, "You're not married, you don't have kids. Run. Go back, go back to Houston. Run, run, run." And I was like, "I'm done. I'm done running. It's time. It's time to deal with my shit."
Cool.
Yeah. So that was
Cool.
definitely the catalyst. And then when I got sober, it was really important for me to make sure that it's not dependent on him. This is
Yeah.
on me. I got to work on myself.
Was that
Yeah. So
clear to you then, or did it come through work, let's say the 12-step system, when you did a moral inventory and when you actually were guided towards taking responsibility, taking ownership there?
mhm.
Because in the past, I mean, for me, it was very
Yeah.
easy to blame others because so
Yeah.
much shit had happened to me.
Yeah.
So there was PTSD,
Mm.
undiagnosed, unrecognized. So I could
Yeah.
always blame others for,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, how did it come about with you?
Um, so I went to grad school. When I got sober, I had just graduated from grad school. So I guess that's a high bottom drunk, whatever.
High functioning.
Right, right.
Good on
So
you.
but I was suicidal, right? So I never had panic attacks until I went to grad school. So depression, give me about a depression and it feels comfortable. I can deal with that. And then in grad school, I started having anxiety. Just the constant worry was so much. And then I started having panic attacks. And then I stopped driving. And then I didn't drive on the freeway for 10 years. It's just escalated and escalated and escalated.
Wow.
And in the height of my drinking, I was like, man, something's wrong with me. And I went to the doctor. She's doing the workup. She's like, "You're drinking too much. Does your grad school know how much you're drinking?" I'm like, "No." She's like, "It's too much. And how are you going to be a therapist when you're drinking this much?" Never went back to her again.
Priceless, isn't it? Priceless. So it's I think,
I
but
I
that's the
knew I knew it
reality.
was me, but
Yeah.
that's what grad school did. It's like the minute that it was 3 years of intensive therapy and not dealing with my shit.
Beautiful.
So it was time.
Beautiful. Okay. And we all come to that point or to those points in our journeys in different ways. For some of us, it is one rock bottom. For some of us, it is multiple times because only just because you deal with one set of shit doesn't mean to say that this is the last thing that goes pear-shaped.
Yeah.
Typically, you get yourself a bit sorted and think everything is fine, and then the next wave of trauma is coming. The next multiple attacks of whatever external circumstances there are, which then combine
Yes.
with the flood of internal upset, with the shame and guilt. I mean, here you are, have done by now a bit of work on yourself, and then more trauma is coming. And you've got suddenly
Mhm.
again negative emotions, and again the next
Yeah.
anxiety attack, where you're feeling
Yeah.
ashamed and guilty of you, ashamed probably more that
Shame.
hey, shame,
Shame.
exactly.
Shame just took over my whole body. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know how I just lost my train of thought.
Hmm.
But all right, go ahead.
No,
I
I
just
mean, no. The reason I
I
say
had
that,
so many things going in my head. I was like,
I
where do I
know.
want to go there?
Oh,
Yeah.
please, because I'm sort of triggering emotions from the past, and I'm sending you
Oh,
back to times. And that is what is happening in interviews. You trigger things in
yeah.
me where I suddenly relive
Mm,
an experience here where
yes.
which makes me go, cringe. And but
You
it
feel it in your stomach.
is it not? Exactly.
Yeah, I was
And
like, oh, put my feet on the ground, take a
mm,
deep breath. Yes,
I mean
it
they
really
say
resonated with me when you said over and over, because that's what the Mormon church is. Hey, I thought I dealt with this. I went to therapy, thought I
yeah.
dealt with this. Oh, I did a round of 12 steps. I thought I dealt with this. Oh, I made amends. I made amends again. I did another round of steps. I met with another therapist.
Yeah.
And then I did lifespan integration. Love lifespan integration. If you, it's an alternative to EMDR.
Right.
Yeah. So that helped me like reparent myself. Fabulous
Nice.
therapist. So I
Uh-huh.
dealt with the Mormon stuff. And then trying to get pregnant. I'm sober. I quit smoking. I'm in a stable, healthy relationship, you know, and can't get pregnant. And then I start having thoughts, oh, I can't get pregnant because I'm not Mormon.
Talk about core beliefs deeply ingrained. I
Yes.
mean, you have been force-fed that you're a failure, that my
Yes.
goodness. I mean,
So,
even nowadays, do these thoughts still come through? Do you
yes,
still want to convince yourself that you're a failure?
I have to think myself out of it
Ah,
constantly. It is so frustrating.
yeah.
My core belief of, hey, women stay home and take care of the house and the man is outside, I still have that.
Ah,
Whenever I hear, oh, your husband is staying home with the kids, what? I don't. It's there. I can't get.
beautiful. But that's so real. Thank you. Thank you for being so honest about that. Because we all have got these core beliefs, and many of us have no clue that we have them. Yet we get triggered.
Yes.
My ex-wife, bless her cotton socks. Honestly, she was no, honestly, there was
Uh,
she was getting upset when
uh,
I offered to help or do certain things because in
uh,
her belief system, she was supposed to be the woman who does it all in the kitchen and does the garden and does everything. And
mm,
there's no way that she could ever do everything because she also wanted to compete with me because of being a businesswoman, being,
uh,
there was all this kind of expectations of being able to achieve absolutely everything,
yeah.
demonstrating to the world out there this perfect woman in every single way that there could
Ugh,
be. And inevitably, you can't do that. you fail yourself constantly.
The
And
perfection.
exactly. And then I did something without even knowing what I did. We had a row. And but
Is
then
that a
again,
fight?
yes, sorry, we had
Okay.
a fight, a
Okay.
row.
I'm
So
sorry.
a
I'm
row
trying to to understand the New Zealand.
an English kind of thing. You're right, you're right. It is a
Okay.
fight.
Okay.
And we were fighting like cats and dogs all the time
Yeah.
because there was so much, I think, underlying trauma, so
Mm,
many warped core beliefs that we were triggering each other and we were not meeting each other's needs. I mean,
yeah.
how did you learn how to talk about your emotions? How did you
Yeah.
learn to be truly
Yeah.
open?
Yeah. So in sober support programs, right? So I'm sharing in a meeting, and I said, man, I turned to my husband and I said, wow, you're being so nice to me today. Wow, what's going on? And he's like, you're being nice, Crystal. I'm like, oh.
Oh, 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 nice one.
He and I think it's the 12 step programs
Mm,
too. It's
mm,
it's getting vulnerable. And
mm,
I have a person that's willing to be vulnerable with me too.
mm,
He was with me through grad school. So he read all those, you know,
mm,
we talked about ingrained core beliefs. And so
mm,
he has all this psychological speech, right? And
mm,
so he can like look dissect his own family and see that. He's like, oh, well, I just followed my father's pattern. I'm like, yeah, yeah, okay.
But it's
And
one
just
thing.
really
No,
being
no, it's
open.
oh yeah, true. But it's one thing to have that intellectual mind to see what is happening, to have then the emotional stability to actually deal with it and work with it. That's
Yes.
so
Yeah.
different. I for a long time, I mean, I had a
Ugh.
good grounding. I could smell a depression a mile away. I could smell PTSD
Mm,
when when a patient came into my consult room.
mhm.
Could I see it in myself? No. Big blinkers,
Oh.
okay. So,
Oh, interesting.
or even if I could see it, then there was a big denial there, just as much as me drinking too much. Nah, 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 nah. Here, him over there. Look like Tony. I mean, he is drinking far too much. I mean, me, look at me. I've got all these kind of alphabet soup behind and in front of my name. Look,
Yeah.
clearly I'm good.
Oh, our
Yeah.
egos. Our egos
Oh,
are,
is it
ooh,
not? Is it not?
yeah. 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 Yeah.
What would you, I mean, what were the lessons that you learned from this
Mm,
journey? Because here you are
yeah.
now being so open about it,
Yeah.
but clearly recognizing
Yeah.
that the first 20 years of your life have set you up with a lot of challenges. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
how, what would you,
I
if
didn't
I,
get sober to be an a-hole, right? Like, I truly believe in emotional sobriety. Who
uh,
cares if I can stay sober for 11 years? Who cares? Like,
uh,
I need to not be an a-hole to people and help others, right? Um,
okay.
so going back to the church stuff and going back to infertility. So try to get pregnant. We did IUI, and that's a whole infertility is just heartbreaking and grief. It's just a whole nother level, and disenfranchised grief, and it's awful. um and so January, I own my own business. I have a few employees, and I don't know what I want to do with my life. If Because I'm still having this desire to have children. I'm like, I'm 44. Like, it's not happening. I tell my husband, like, hey, I want to adopt a child. He's like, I don't want to do it. He's crying. I'm crying. A vulnerable situation. Um, and so I start meeting with an intuitive life coach. And believe like 80% because I grew up Mormon. I'm skeptical about everything. It's like, I don't need a guru to follow. I'm not going to join some other group to have someone else tell me how to feel, how to do things, what I should be doing. Right. And that's why I like about 12-step programs because it's all suggestions. Right. I start working with this intuitive life coach, and she, once again, the core beliefs: I'm bad. I can't get pregnant because I'm not Mormon, and if I was Mormon, just these core beliefs, I just can't give her. And so it went from cognitive behavioral therapy. Oh, I can think myself out of this to like getting that stuff out of my body. I had no idea how much shame was stored in my body. And I didn't have the words for it then because I started doing yin yoga. I love yin. I go in there, and the first 2.5 months, I just cried. I just had no idea that I had trauma stuck in my body.
Beautiful.
And it came out and it came out. And the 2.5 months I was there, there was a pregnant woman in there as well too. And this is when, the grief of infertility. I was like, why is this person there? And I've never seen her again. And I've never been around another pregnant person at the studio again either. I feel like it was like, they're like, you got to deal with it. You got to deal with it.
Wow.
Right? Or I get to deal with it. Right.
Wow.
And what I hate is when in the program they talk about, hey, this can help someone else, which is the last thing you want to hear when you're going through infertility, right? Now I'm on the other side of it. Now I can help somebody, right? And so meeting with this intuitive life coach is like, I don't have to hold on to those old ideas anymore. This is what I'm worth. This is what I deserve. So really empowering myself. So
that's beautiful.
And that's taken me down a different road, a spiritual road. Because when I was drinking and hiking mountains, trying to find spirituality like that, you can't find, even though you're in the mountains in nature, if you're drunk.
I was about to say, you come on. The wine comes out of your glass. That's very hard. And after a while, even your camel backpack there, when you're sipping out the wine, this doesn't taste the way.
Did you do that?
Well, come on. You hide your wine in anything. You would have in a coffee
beer
cup.
Cans. I had the beer cans in there, so it was a lot easier going down.
Oh, you just lightweight, aren't you? Beer cans. Your bloody American beers is what, 4%? Come on. No. You get heavier stuff.
No, I liked the Bud Light stuff.
Oh, come on.
I did. It was the lightweight stuff. Yeah.
No. See, in Germany we've got quite heavy, or heavy as in and far higher volume percent alcohol and beers.
Yeah.
So therefore, I must admit that the first time I had a real dopamine rush was after a liter of beer, and it was beautiful. It was such a rush of happiness after 5 years of darkness in my life story, to actually have that laughter coming out of me and that happiness, and that was beautiful. So I think it's so important to recognize it, that those things, let it be food, let it be whatever it is, your sex addiction, it all serves to help you there and then. And you said it very early in the interview that when you're living in a certain environment, even if the house is burning around you, but you're cold and you warm your fingers on the burning wall, that's the only thing you know. So therefore, it's the very similar thing, and it's that beautiful thing called life that sometimes interferes with either really shitty lives and sends
Mm-hmm.
you that big sign, like in this case, your husband vomiting up blood. I
Mm-hmm.
think that was quite a good 2x4 in front of the head. Gudunk. They have tried to give you many, many signs before, Crystal.
Yeah,
I am sure, but you were not ready.
absolutely.
You were not ready to see that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I knew I was an alcoholic for years. I knew I was. Uh, I just didn't think my life was unmanageable
Hmm.
until I got sober. And I was like, oh, driving home from work, shaking until I get home and so I can drink the beer and
Oh
have my
dear.
cigarettes.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, that's not unmanageable. Okay. Wanting to drive yourself off the road
Yeah.
because that's not
Hmm.
unmanageable.
Sure.
Like,
But sometimes
and
there's a chicken and there's the egg, and you wonder
mm,
what the hell. When you stopped drinking, there would have still been negative thoughts. There would have been still
yeah.
depressive episodes. Did the anxiety go away? What happened to your anxiety once you
Yeah.
stopped drinking?
It escalated, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I didn't have the depressant. So I got on antidepressants, I
Mhm.
got on a benzo, and
Mhm.
I told my doctor, hey, I quit drinking. She's like, Crystal, I bet your nausea is gonna go away because I was on nausea pills because I was sick all the time. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just nauseous.
Oh, you poor
Like
sausage.
it didn't click. So I've been with this doctor 12 years now, and she's just really like helpful. And like I've
Mm.
had bouts of
Mm.
like the depression, and then she like only gives me a couple benzos. I haven't taken one. And I don't
Mm.
know, I can't even remember, right?
Beautiful,
Maybe
beautiful.
on a plane. So I haven't
Yeah.
had a panic attack in a couple years.
Mm.
I did get some anxiety driving on the freeway to Bellevue because I hadn't been to Bellevue, driven there. And so if it's a new place, and then I'm like
Mm.
start breathing, I'm in the right lane. I'm like, but I got through it. So
Good on you. So you clearly needed to learn new coping mechanisms,
oh
and to a certain degree, you were advantaged, if that if that is the right word. You had some training as part of your profession. Having said that, um, the what do you do nowadays?
mm,
What are the foundations you've learned to lay down proper so to minimize the chance of you having a relapse? Or
mm,
how can you prevent yourself from creating depression? Because I think to a certain degree, many mental health challenges are a
mm,
choice because
mm,
we choose to live a certain way with
mm-hmm.
shit nutrition, dehydrated, no
Yes,
sleep, all the kind
yes,
of basics that we practice in functional medicine and that we have taken on as daily habits for us. That's really where the money is for me. That's
mm,
what keeps me sane. What were the key things for you nowadays, or what
mm.
are the key things that you would say, wow, okay, if I don't pay attention here, I pay the price in 3 weeks' time?
In 1 week, I didn't do hot yoga in 1 week, and
Mhm.
I was miserable and gonna kill everybody.
Okay,
So
there you go.
I went to Yen, which I probably can't say that anymore. Huh? Anyways, so I went to Yen. Love Yen, but I haven't cried. It's like I let all that stuff out. Like,
Very
but I like
interesting.
a hot yoga class too.
Uh,
Um,
define hot yoga. I think there's quite a bit of misunderstanding out there.
is
What
there?
does, yeah, oh, well, just
Oh,
teach us what
oh,
it means for you.
it's a vinyasa class or a hatha class or a yenyasa class in 104. I don't know what it is in Celsius, but it's 104 Fahrenheit.
So 97 is your body temperature, so that would be around 40 degrees Celsius. Okay,
Okay.
so hot, but not
Yeah.
sauna hot. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Most of the time I
So,
just lay there.
So, okay, fair call too. Because
Yeah.
bottom line is, it is hot, your body will sweat. And
Mhm.
in its own right, that sweating is cleansing. So
Yeah.
many toxins are actually getting thrown out of the system through the lymph and then the sweat in its own right. And that's where sauna is so healthy, and that's where so many
Yeah.
other hot therapies are beneficial to you.
Yeah.
Um,
So I do that, and then I go to one meeting,
yeah,
online sober support meeting
nice,
online.
nice.
And I switched to secular a year ago. Absolutely, it's a game changer. Game changer. I didn't even know when I walked in, to the rooms, and I was like, this feels like church. This feels like an overpowering
Yeah.
white male.
Oh, I see.
Um, like it was very triggering,
Ah, okay.
super triggering. And I only went to women's meetings.
Yeah.
So when I found this online secular meeting, and I love it. I'm meeting with someone, I'm going over Staying Sober Without God. It's a great book. And so I don't hear the word God, and then I have to say, uh, to explain away like all the core beliefs, right? It's just
And that's so
it's not
important.
there.
And I explained it in my book. Basically, um, the original 12-step system was developed in the 1930s in America. And at that time, everything could be sold with the word God. And it actually turns out that
Yeah.
the key person who was instrumental in creating it, Bill, he was actually not religious. In letters later from his wife, it became clear, nah, he wasn't religious, but that was
Hmm.
what was selling. That was how they were trying to convince others to stop drinking. And so therefore
Hmm.
God came into that. And I struggle with it. I'm an humanist and atheist, and God was a bit of a trouble. But God,
Hmm.
God grant me the serenity, for example, in the serenity prayer. God can
Yeah.
be a group of orderly drunks
Yeah.
or a group
Yeah.
of druggies.
Yeah.
Okay, so I could explain it with that, but it's still, there was this having to explain it. And especially for someone with religious
Yeah.
trauma, I can see where that triggers you left, right, and
Oh
center.
yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, but that's no excuse. So for those of you who are drinking out there, who have got religious trauma, who have got, and say because of that, I will never ever go to a 12-step meeting. The only reason that 12-step meetings are typically held in a church is not because of the church, because the church gives them a cheap room or doesn't charge them anything at all. That's the only reason, because otherwise, to actually get a room of a decent size, you would have to pay quite a bit of money, and therefore you
Hmm.
can't just go there. So that's the reason that it is there. And secondly, most of the groups that I have in the past attended were not religious at all. I
Um,
can't actually remember one.
hmm.
It was just basically, yeah, if you want to
Huh.
believe in God as a deity, go for it. If you don't, well, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
cares? This is a side
Yeah.
issue. So,
Okay.
um, therefore, it's quite
Uh,
important, guys. That should not stop you. Find a secular group or find a group that is using a different methodology rather than the 12 steps. If the 12 steps is too triggering for you, there are many other things like smart recovery, etc. There's so many ways, so many systems that help you to move away from alcohol or drugs or other really not so good behaviors, um, from escaping your reality. But you can't achieve the pinnacle of wisdom and serenity but when you're still balancing your wine glass. Trust me,
yeah.
I've read virtually all the self-help books that there were, but I did that with a glass of wine in my hands. So,
Drunk.
absolutely. So, trust me, honestly, I had it all. Yeah, Tony Robbins, you name it, they were there. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. One day I need to do that.
It's
So,
like getting a counseling degree when you're drunk. Yeah.
touche, touche. But then again, here we are. Here we are nowadays. We can actually be open about it. We can talk
Mhm.
about that. And with that, hopefully you guys will realize that whatever you're going through there at the moment, you're going through it. These are not easy times for many of you. Many of you have been set up to fail simply by either generational trauma being handed down, coping mechanisms, lack thereof, being modeled to you, or the wrong ones modeled to you. Well, surprise, surprise, that now a lifetime where more trauma will come in inevitably. And you have not been equipped with the right knowledge, with the right emotional intelligence. How the hell are you supposed to somehow be this perfect being, serene, doing all the right decisions, never flying off the handle? Yeah, come on, give yourself a break. Honestly. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Crystal, where to from here? I mean, you have already
Mm.
come a hell of a long way. And here you are now actually sharing your
Mhm.
story. What would you love to see with regards to your own
Mm.
development?
Mhm.
Who do you want to be when you grow up? And what lessons do you want others to learn? What are sort of the key
Yeah.
top tips you would give someone?
Question everything.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Including your memories and including your
Mhm.
feelings and your thoughts. Because there's so much bullshit in my head running around. It's the same in yours, Crystal, honestly. At the same
I feel
token, we
like
are
I've done a therapy session here.
ah, but that is so beautiful. Once we actually start communicating and living intentionally and
Yeah.
are okay to be a bit vulnerable and are okay to be a bit
Yeah.
open and authentic,
Yeah.
see what
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah.
You certainly make me feel certain things from my past, which I'm not necessarily so grateful for. But at the
Mm.
same token,
Mm.
somehow the universe brought us together, and
Yeah.
now we have
Yeah.
had the chance to grow. And inevitably, the last
Yes.
hour, you allowed me to gain a different perspective, grow
Mm.
more, understand more, be more aware of, let's say, religious trauma in this case, but
Mhm.
also be aware of some of the little things that triggered me, which
Huh.
indicated, hang on, there's more healing to do when it
Yes.
comes to X, Y, and Z.
Yes. Yes. Uh-oh. When I was in grad school, I had a instructor that said, whenever you get triggered by somebody, say, thank you. I get to work on something now.
Something like that. Something like that. But not but. Yet, I want to get
Yeah.
away from but. Yet, there is I would love to try to grow
Mhm.
through joy from now and then, not through trauma. I've done the trauma bit to nauseum, ad nauseum. So can we actually just
Yeah.
try a different way of growing? What do you think,
Yeah.
Crystal?
I think that's fabulous. Yeah.
Oh dear.
Let's just take away the shame. Hey, we make
Ah,
mistakes. Let's take the shame away. And
hmm,
that's why I love Brene Brown,
hmm,
Man,
hmm.
take the
Crystal,
shame.
you're an amazing woman. If people want to learn more about you and if they want to find you out there, where can they go on the internet?
I've got Instagram, Facebook,
Hmm,
Crystal Redefines Family. And then I
hmm.
have a memoir coming out next year.
Woo.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And again, this is such a growth for those
Mm,
of you who have not experienced yet the power of
mm,
journaling, or in fact, the power of actually writing your story down in the
mm,
form of a book. Now,
mhm,
that is a journey waiting for you and a journey of discovery waiting for you to happen. And it's just
mhm.
wow, 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 wow. Amazing. I can't wait. I think there's a second
Yeah.
version of our interview coming up, maybe in a year's time or so.
All right. All right. All right.
Once your book is out,
Can't
because
wait.
you will have grown so much and you will have
Yeah.
identified more lessons that
Yes.
you have learned inevitably. And
Hmm.
that's the privilege for all of us
Hmm.
when we live our life intentionally and when we
Mm.
actually cherish right now the present moment and from now and then go back into the past to examine something and bring a lesson forward.
Yeah.
This is where the magic happens. And I think that is for that I'm grateful, and I'm incredibly grateful to you that you came onto my show. So thank you so much for your
Thank
wisdom, for
you.
your authenticity, and for your vulnerability.
Thank you.
And you guys out there, I send you a huge hug, and look after yourself and live with intention. Bye.
I never give up. I never give up. I never give up.